The courtroom stiffened the moment he walked in, chin high, shoulders back, the kind of man who thinks rules are optional if you say things loud enough. He snapped his fingers at the clerk, demanded a better seat, told the bailiff he does not wait in lines. Judge Judy watched him in silence, calm, patient, and dangerous. And when she finally spoke, his arrogance vanished faster than the color in his face. But before we get into it, where are you watching from? Drop it in the comments and hit subscribe for more shocking courtroom moments. The echo of his demands had not even faded when the courtroom doors settled behind him. The air felt tight, stretched between the arrogance he carried and the silence that answered it. Even without speaking, Judge Judy's eyes followed him like a slow, deliberate camera pan. Marcus Hale stood in the center of the room as if he owned the ground beneath his feet. He did not wait for direction. He did not ask permission. He claimed space as though dominance were a birthright and inconvenience a personal insult. The bailiff watched carefully, jaw set, not because Marcus was dangerous, but because men who believe they are untouchable often forget where they are standing. Elena Ruiz remained near the plaintiff's podium, clutching a thin folder with both hands. Her knuckles whitened slightly, the kind of pressure that comes from holding too many truths in too small a space. She did not look at Marcus, not directly. But her shoulders tightened when he walked past her, as though memory tugged at the edges of her composure. Marcus smirked at the cameras, straightened his jacket, and then directed a sharp, impatient wave toward the clerk. "Any day now," he muttered, loud enough for the audience to react, but quiet enough for him to pretend he had not meant it. The clerk kept her composure, though the flicker in her eyes revealed her irritation. Judge Judy did not interrupt. She allowed the silence to stretch, thin, taut, and uncomfortable. Silence is where truth starts to sweat, and Marcus was already sweating, though he hid it beneath the crisp fabric of entitlement. The camera of the room seemed to move in closer, tightening around the tension. Elena shifted her weight, calming her breath, grounding herself. It was not fear anymore. It was readiness. Judy lifted a single sheet of paper from her bench. The gesture was small, but the courtroom reacted as if lights had dimmed for the first scene of a film. Marcus noticed. His smirk faltered, only slightly, but enough for anyone who was paying attention. "Mr. Hale," Judy finally said, her voice steady, unhurried. "Before we begin, I need to understand something. You made several demands on your way in today." He grinned again, though it did not reach his eyes. "You cannot blame a man for expecting respect." Judy's gaze narrowed a fraction of an inch. "Respect," she replied, "is interesting. It has a very specific definition in this courtroom." Marcus opened his mouth to speak again, but Judy raised one hand, just a subtle lift, no more than an inch, yet strong enough to halt him mid-breath. The audience shifted in their seats, sensing a shift in power Marcus had not yet recognized. The paper in Judy's hand rustled, the sound sharp as tension cutting through the room. She set the page down, leaned forward slightly, and asked the one question that drained the smirk from his face. "Mr. Hale, why did you assume you were entitled to special treatment before this case even began?" Her hesitation lingered in the room like a soft tremor, felt before it was understood. The paper in Judge Judy's hand had settled, but the tension it stirred had not. Even Marcus, who once swaggered in like a storm, seemed to sense the shift in the air. Judge Judy turned her gaze to Elena Ruiz. "Ms. Ruiz, you may begin." Elena exhaled slowly, the kind of breath a person releases when they finally choose truth over fear. She stepped forward, lifting the thin folder that had become her anchor. The camera inside the courtroom seemed to follow the movement, closing in on her trembling fingers before rising to her steady eyes. "I was hired by Mr. Hale," she began, voice soft but unwavering, "to renovate his guest house. He said it needed to be magazine-ready because he did not want to entertain guests in anything less than perfection." Her tone remained respectful, but each word carried the weight of a memory she had worked hard to manage. Marcus rolled his eyes, an exaggerated gesture meant to provoke. But Judy did not even glance his way. Her attention stayed on Elena, a choice that pulled every spectator into the emotional gravity of the moment. Elena continued, "I completed the work, on time, with the materials he requested. But when I delivered the final invoice, he refused to pay. Her voice cracked on the last word, but not from weakness. Cracks form where pressure has lived too long. Marcus immediately jumped in. "Your Honor, she is leaving out details." Judy raised her hand again, the same controlled gesture that froze him earlier. "You will have your turn. Right now, she is speaking." A quiet murmur rippled through the courtroom, the sound of an audience watching arrogance collide with accountability. Elena handed a packet of receipts to the bailiff, who walked them to the bench. Judy flipped through the pages with the precision of someone who had seen thousands of lies and just as many truths, knowing the difference by how the paper felt in her hands. "These appear organized," Judy said, almost to herself. "Documented, labeled." She looked up. "Ms. Ruiz, did he ever give a reason for refusing payment?" Elena hesitated. The flicker of discomfort returned, barely noticeable, but enough to shift the temperature of the room. "He said," she replied carefully, "that I should be grateful he chose my business at all, and that I should accept the exposure he was giving me." Her eyes dropped. "He also said, I wasted his time by asking him to review the invoice." The audience stiffened as if the insult had been directed at them. Marcus scoffed, but this time his bravado did not carry. His arms crossed tight. His jaw ticked. His confidence had begun to fracture, hairline cracks visible only to the trained eye. Judy leaned back slightly, studying him. Then she returned to Elena. "You mentioned earlier that there was something else, something you were hesitant to show." Elena nodded, slowly, reluctantly, as if opening a door she had kept shut for months. The courtroom held its breath. Judy's voice lowered, steady and sharp. "Ms. Ruiz, what exactly are you afraid to reveal to this court?" The folder in Elena's hands shook, not like fear, but like truth trying to break free. The courtroom lights reflected off its worn edges, catching the movement as if even the ceiling wanted to see what she was hiding. Marcus watched her, arms crossed, mask of confidence stretched thin. Judge Judy's gaze softened just a fraction. "Ms. Ruiz," she said, "the court cannot act on shadows. If you brought something, we need to see it." The room fell still, as if the next sound would belong to the truth. Elena swallowed, fingers tightening around the thin cardboard. "Your Honor," she whispered, "this file, it represents the worst day of the project." Her voice steadied as she forced herself to lift the cover. "And the worst day for my employees." Marcus scoffed, but the sound lacked the bite he intended. It floated out as nervous air, not dominance. Inside the file, several printed text threads lay atop a set of photos. The bailiff stepped forward and carried them to the bench, but not before the camera caught a close-up of Elena's trembling fingertips releasing the papers, a symbolic surrender of something she had wanted to forget. Judge Judy scanned the first page, her eyebrows lowered by the smallest degree, but the shift was unmistakable. "You sent these messages, Mr. Hale?" Marcus lifted his chin. "I guided her. That is leadership. She needed direction." Judy did not respond immediately. She let silence judge him first. The audience leaned in, absorbing the sharp quiet that made the fluorescent lights hum louder than before. She turned to the next page. The message was short, but it carried the weight of humiliation. "Do it again. Maybe this time you will understand basic quality." Elena's voice trembled, but she spoke. "That was sent in front of my team. After that, 2 workers left the project. They said they could not stay where they felt disrespected." Her eyes glistened, not with tears, but with a memory she wished she could unfeel. Marcus shifted in his chair. "People quit all the time. That is not my fault." "Perhaps," Judy replied, "but humiliation is seldom accidental. And these words tell a story you may not want to finish." She reached the photos, sharp, clear images of the renovated guest house, each marked with dates and notes. "These appear professionally done," she observed. "Work completed on time, materials consistent." Her tone sharpened by degrees. "Yet you refused to pay." Marcus leaned forward, attempting a smile. "Her attitude made the job unpleasant. That counts." Judy set the photos down, folding her hands. "We do not calculate payment based on personal feelings." Her eyes locked onto his. But we do calculate credibility. Elena hesitated again, her hand hovering over one more item inside the folder, something she had not yet mentioned. Judge Judy noticed the motion instantly. There is more? Elena nodded, slowly. Yes, Your Honor. Something I hoped I would never need. A hush rolled through the courtroom. Judy leaned forward, her tone low and controlled. Ms. Ruiz, what exactly is the final item you are afraid to show this court? The paper slipped from Elena's hand and landed on the bench with a soft, devastating tap. It was the kind of sound that should have meant nothing, but in that charged silence, it felt like the prelude to a truth no one was ready for. Marcus blinked, once, sharply, like a man who sensed danger without knowing why. Judge Judy lifted the page gently, as though the weight of it required care. The courtroom leaned forward in a collective breath, the air tightening around the bench. Judy's eyes moved across the printed text, her expression flattening with each line. Mr. Hale, she said, her tone slicing through the room. Did you send this message at 2:17 in the morning? Marcus shifted, pulling his shoulders back as if posture could rewrite facts. Your Honor, I manage many projects. I work late. People appreciate when I check in. This, Judy replied, turning the page toward him, is not a check-in. The bailiff angled a monitor so the audience could see. The screen displayed a message long enough to be a monologue that bled ego in every sentence. You should feel honored to work for me. Most contractors beg for clients of my status. If you want respect, earn it by doing better. Do not waste my time again. A quiet gasp rippled through the spectators. Elena looked down, hands clasped tightly in her lap. This was the message that had hollowed a space in her confidence, the message that had made her question everything she had built. Marcus tried to laugh, a brittle sound. It was motivational, constructive criticism. She is taking it personally. Judy set the page down slowly, the way someone sets down a verdict long before announcing it. You wrote this in the middle of the night, she said, voice level but cutting. No professional message begins with, you should feel honored. That is not leadership. That is intimidation wearing a suit. Her words struck harder than any raised voice could have. Marcus opened his mouth to argue, but the sentence died before it formed. He looked around the room, searching for support that no longer existed. Even the bailiff's face held the subtle, unmistakable expression of someone who had seen enough. Elena's voice emerged quietly. I almost quit my business the day I received that message. The words trembled, but the strength behind them was undeniable. I thought maybe I was the problem. Maybe I really did not deserve to run a company. Judy's gaze shifted, softening for one brief second. That doubt did not come from your work, Ms. Ruiz. It came from his conduct. The atmosphere thickened. Every eye returned to Marcus, who sat frozen, the facade of superiority cracking beneath the weight of his own words. Judy tapped the page once with her finger. This message alone is troubling, but Ms. Ruiz said earlier she was not the only one who found it inappropriate. Marcus stiffened, color draining from his face. Judy looked directly at him. Mr. Hale, your assistant contacted Ms. Ruiz about this message. Would you like to explain why your own employee warned her about you? The word assistant struck the courtroom like a dropped glass, quiet but unmistakably shattering. Marcus flinched, a small involuntary movement he tried and failed to disguise. Even the lights seemed to hold steady, as if waiting for truth to step into full view. Judge Judy folded her hands. Your employee contacted Ms. Ruiz. That is unusual. Assistants do not typically reach out to clients behind their employer's back. Her voice had lowered, not in volume, but in temperature. A colder tone, a measured dissection. Elena drew in a breath, steady but deep, like someone about to reveal a piece of evidence she had hoped would never be needed. Your Honor, she said softly. His assistant left me a voicemail. I saved it. A murmur passed through the spectators. The bailiff straightened, hands clasped behind him, eyes narrowing just slightly. A subtle camera cue suggesting the moment was about to shift. Marcus leaned forward. That voicemail means nothing. She overstepped. People exaggerate. Judy's gaze sharpened. And what exactly would she be exaggerating, Mr. Hale? Marcus hesitated. It was barely a pause, but hesitation from a man who had walked in demanding a better seat felt like a confession all by itself. Elena opened the folder again, pulling out a printed transcript and a small USB drive. She told me that I was not the first contractor to deal with this. She said he had a pattern, that he liked to intimidate people. The silence that followed did not feel passive. It pressed inward, thick and observing. Judy nodded for the bailiff to retrieve the documents. As he approached the bench, Elena continued, her voice growing steadier with each word. She apologized on his behalf. She said she was tired of watching people get treated badly just for working hard. Marcus's jaw tightened. She is a disgruntled employee. She has always been dramatic. The comment landed poorly. The audience shifted, uncomfortable with how quickly he diminished someone who could no longer defend herself. Judy looked at the transcript, her expression darkened by a shade. "This voicemail is clear," she said. "Your assistant believed Ms. Ruiz needed to protect herself from you." Marcus sputtered. "Protect herself? From what? I expect excellence." "Expecting excellence," Judy replied, "is not the same as weaponizing authority." The words settled like dust in sunlight, visible, undeniable. Marcus tried again, voice rising. "This is ridiculous. An assistant trying to ruin my reputation? That is absurd." Judy did not raise her voice. She never needed to. "Mr. Hale, reputations are not destroyed by others. They are revealed by behavior." The blow landed cleanly. Elena lowered her eyes, a mixture of relief and exhaustion crossing her face. She had held this secret for months, waiting for someone to see what she endured. Judy closed the file. Then she looked directly at Marcus, expression unreadable yet unyielding. "There is a voicemail here, a recording, and I intend to play it." Marcus froze. His bravado flickered like a candle pushed too close to wind. Judy pressed a button on the courtroom monitor. "Mr. Hale, shall we all hear what your assistant said about you, in her own voice?" The first click of the audio system was soft, but it carried through the courtroom like a starting gun. Marcus stiffened, shoulders rising, as if bracing for impact no one else could see. Elena closed her eyes for a moment, steadying herself against the memory she had tried not to relive. Judge Judy nodded to the bailiff, who pressed the final button. A faint crackle pulsed through the room, then the assistant's voice emerged, calm, careful, and heartbreakingly tired. "Hi, Ms. Ruiz. I hope you hear this before tomorrow. I just want to warn you. Please be careful with Marcus." The courtroom froze. Even breath felt intrusive. The assistant continued, her voice weighted with a kind of resignation that came from surviving something quietly for too long. "This is not about your work. You are good at your job. But he treats people badly when he thinks no one will hold him accountable." Marcus shifted violently. "Your Honor, this is out of context." "Quiet," Judy said without looking away from the screen. She did not raise her voice. She did not need to. Silence followed, like obedience itself. The assistant's message deepened. "I have seen him talk to contractors like they are beneath him. He yells, he threatens, he refuses to pay until they are so exhausted they give up. I should not say this, but I cannot watch it anymore." A soft exhale spread across the spectators, as if dozens of people had finally understood something they had only sensed before. Marcus's face reddened, his jaw flexed. He opened his mouth, but the recording continued before he could fabricate a defense. "I am sorry you are dealing with this, Ms. Ruiz. You do not deserve it. Please save every message he sends you. Protect yourself. Tell someone. I hope one day people stop letting him get away with this." The final sentence lingered, suspended in the thick, stunned quiet. When the audio clicked off, it felt like the room exhaled for the first time in minutes. Elena's eyes glistened, not from pain, but from the relief of hearing someone else acknowledge what she had carried alone. Marcus hid his trembling hands beneath the table, but the slight shake of his shoulders betrayed him. The confident man who strutted into the courtroom had shrunk to half his size. Judge Judy leaned back slowly, giving the silence room to settle into every corner. "Mr. Hale," she said, "your assistant described repeated mistreatment, threats, and manipulation. Do you dispute her words?" Marcus swallowed. Hard. She is lying. She wants revenge for being let go. Judy lifted an eyebrow. According to this file, she resigned voluntarily, and her last evaluation from you called her an indispensable asset. So which version is the lie? The room tightened again. Marcus faltered. People change. Indeed they do, Judy replied. Often when accountability arrives. Elena looked at Marcus briefly, then down at her hands, as if choosing not to carry any more of his burden. Judy closed the laptop gently. We are not finished. Marcus stood abruptly, desperation bleeding through his composure. Fine. Then I have evidence too. His voice cracked. And it will change everything. Marcus gripped his phone like a lifeline that was slipping through his fingers. His confidence did not return with it. If anything, the device seemed to tremble with him, as though even technology understood it was being dragged into a losing battle. Judge Judy watched calmly, hands folded, eyes sharp enough to cut through whatever story he thought he could spin. You claim you have evidence, she said. Then produce it. Marcus stepped forward, the movement jerky, rushed. He tapped his screen with the frantic energy of someone who believed speed could replace substance. I recorded her, he announced, glancing at the audience as if expecting applause. I documented everything. This will show you what kind of person she really is. Elena did not move. Her stillness was not fear, it was exhaustion, meeting resolve. The camera seemed to zoom in on her face, catching the subtle tightening around her eyes, the expression of a woman who already knew what the footage would reveal because she had lived it. Marcus finally found the file and thrust the phone toward the bailiff. Play that. Play all of it. The bailiff connected the device to the courtroom monitor. A shaky video appeared, grainy, unfocused, filmed with the impatient hand of someone who believed evidence was whatever he pointed at. The footage showed Elena walking through the guest house, clipboard in hand, quietly explaining next steps to her team. Her voice was professional, steady, focused. Nothing about her tone matched the version Marcus had tried to sell. Judy tilted her head. This is your proof? Marcus jabbed a finger toward the screen. Listen to her tone. Listen to how she talks to me. The audio captured Elena saying, Mr. Hale, I will be applying a second coat once the walls cure. The product information you selected requires it. There was no disrespect, no attitude, only process. Judy blinked once, slowly. Her tone sounds appropriate. Marcus scoffed. Because she knew I was filming. She plays innocent when she wants to. The audience shifted, an almost tangible wave of disbelief rippling across the seats. Judy gestured to the bailiff. Continue. The video jumped slightly as Marcus adjusted the camera. The angle swung wildly until the lens caught him instead. His face filled the frame, scowling, jaw clenched, eyes narrowed with hostility he clearly never intended anyone else to see. You need to stop questioning me, his recorded voice growled. You do the work. I approve it. That is the order. The courtroom stilled. The recorded Marcus leaned closer to the camera, as if proximity made power. If I say fix it, you fix it. If I say redo it, you redo it. You are not here to challenge me. Elena's voice, off camera, trembled, but remained calm. I am only trying to ensure the materials are used correctly. Recorded Marcus cut her off with a sharp curse. The bailiff paused the video on Marcus's contorted expression. Anger twisted into something uncomfortably raw. In real time, Marcus's eyes widened. This is taken out of context. Judy raised one hand. Marcus fell silent. This, she said, is not evidence for your defense. It is evidence of your conduct. His mouth parted, but no words came. Judy leaned in, her tone colder than before. Mr. Hale, shall we watch the rest of this recording, the part where the camera finally shows how you treat the people you hire? The screen flickered once, then steadied, and the room shifted with it. The camera angle changed, not toward Elena, not toward the project site, but toward Marcus himself. His own face, distorted by anger and proximity, filled the monitor like an unintentional confession. Judge Judy did not move. She let the silence cradle the moment, the way a director holds a shot just long enough for the audience to feel the truth settle into their bones. "Continue," she instructed. The bailiff pressed play. The video resumed with Marcus's recorded voice rising sharply. "I am tired of explaining things to you. Just do what you are told." His features, caught in harsh lighting, revealed lines of irritation that no editing could soften. Every twitch, every glare, every clenched muscle became impossible to deny. Elena's off-camera voice remained gentle, steady, despite the hostility aimed at her. "I only want to confirm the measurements. The materials require—" Marcus barked over her. "I do not care what the materials require. I care about results. If you cannot produce them, I will find someone who can." The audience reacted with a low gasp that rippled like a slow-moving wave. A few heads turned toward Elena, her posture small yet unbroken. The camera caught her blinking, steadying, choosing calm over collapse. Judy leaned slightly to the side, absorbing every frame. Her expression did not harden, it cooled. That was worse. The footage jumped again, this time capturing the moment Marcus forgot he was filming. The phone dipped to his side. The image jostled wildly, and then, by accident or by fate, it pointed directly at him from below. There he stood, looming over Elena with a posture unmistakably aggressive. His arm cut through the air in frustration. His voice dropped to a tone that carried the unmistakable cadence of threat. "You do not speak to me like that," he growled. "I am the one in control here, not you." The sound alone tightened the air in the courtroom. Judge Judy's eyes narrowed. The temperature in the room shifted, cooler, sharper, as though the lights themselves recoiled. "Pause it," she said. The bailiff froze the video on Marcus's contorted expression, jaw locked, eyes narrowed, a sneer rising as if responding to someone unworthy of decency. The frozen image confronted the real Marcus directly, mirroring him in a way he could no longer escape. In his seat now, Marcus shrank, shoulders pulled in, breath unsteady. It was not the arrogance that walked into the courtroom. It was something smaller, something cornered. Judy studied him for a long, merciless beat. "This," she said, tapping the monitor lightly, "is how you treat people you hire. This is how you speak to professionals. This is what you believe leadership looks like." Marcus swallowed hard. He opened his mouth, then closed it. Even he could not spin the reflection staring back at him. Judy sat back. "Mr. Hale, your own recording undermines every claim you have made today." His silence was the first honest thing he had offered. Judy turned toward him fully. "So tell me, Mr. Hale, why does every recording you produce reveal more of your misconduct than your defense?" The frozen frame of Marcus's twisted expression still glowed on the monitor when the lights seemed to dim around it. His recorded snarl hung in the air like a storm cloud refusing to pass. And the real Marcus, seated beneath it, looked smaller than the shadow his own voice had cast. Judge Judy folded her hands. "Mr. Hale, you have seen yourself. You have heard yourself. Now I want to hear something else." She leaned forward a single inch. "Your explanation." Marcus inhaled sharply, his chest rising too quickly, as though even breathing felt like a negotiation he was losing. "Your Honor, that video is misleading." His voice trembled on the second word, not loudly, not noticeably to someone unfamiliar with power unraveling. But the tremor was there, thin as a hairline crack in glass. Judy caught it immediately. "Misleading," she repeated, letting the syllables fall slow and heavy. "Show me what part misled the court." Marcus's eyes darted between the screen and Elena. "She challenged me. She questioned everything I said. I needed the job done right. She refused to listen." Elena's head lifted, not in defiance, but in quiet disbelief. Her eyes glimmered with the weariness of someone who had been blamed for too long. Judy tilted her head. A camera would have captured the shift, the subtle narrowing of her eyes, the tightening of her jaw. "Ms. Ruiz responded with professionalism," she said. "You responded with intimidation." The room held its breath. Marcus's face reddened, not with confidence, but with the rising shame he refused to name. He tried again. "She made me look incompetent." "That," Judy answered, is your insecurity speaking, not her conduct. The words struck like a gavel before the gavel. Marcus blinked rapidly, an involuntary flutter that betrayed panic more clearly than any raised voice. His hands gripped the edge of the podium until his knuckles blanched. His voice cracked, sharp, thin, when he finally spoke again. I was under pressure. A lot of pressure. Judy nodded slowly, but there was no comfort in it. Pressure reveals character. It does not excuse it. The audience shifted, murmurs brushing across the walls like distant wind. Elena stepped forward slightly. Your Honor, I never wanted a fight. I only wanted to be treated with the same respect I gave. Her words were soft, but they struck harder than anything Marcus had managed all day. He lowered his head, not in humility but in calculation, as if searching his mind for any excuse left untouched. Judy watched him think. Mr. Hale, she said, before I review the final document in this case, I will give you one chance to present anything else you believe supports your credibility. Marcus swallowed, throat tight. Yes, he said, barely above a whisper. There is something else. Judy raised an eyebrow. Then produce it. Marcus hesitated. His fingers twitched. His breath stuttered. He looked up with a hollow, frightened certainty. Your Honor, you are not going to like what is in that document. Do you believe remorse should change the outcome of accountability, or should truth stand on its own no matter when it surfaces? The manila envelope slid from Marcus's briefcase as if it were trying to escape his hands. The edges were bent, the seal half torn, as though it had been opened and closed too many times by someone unsure whether to hide it or destroy it. Judge Judy's eyes followed its movement with the slow precision of a camera tracking a pivotal prop. Place it on the bench, she instructed. Marcus approached with stiff, mechanical steps. His composure cracked in the small betrayals of body language, tightened shoulders, a tremor rippling through his left hand, a jaw locked in unnatural tension. The audience leaned in. They could feel the moment pressing against him. The bailiff lifted the envelope and set it before Judy. She pulled out a single document, a work order, neatly printed, clearly signed. The signature at the bottom curved with unmistakable flourish. Mr. Hale, she said, this is your approval of Ms. Ruiz's final design and cost summary. Marcus's throat bobbed. That was rushed. She pushed me to sign. Judy lifted her gaze. Your signature is clean, steady, and identical to the one on your personal checks. That is not rushed. That is intentional. The weight of her words landed hard. Elena watched silently, fingers laced tightly, arms drawn close as if bracing for an emotional aftershock she had spent months trying to outrun. Judy flipped the page. Here it states that you approved the material list, the invoice breakdown, and the timeline. You confirmed the completion was satisfactory. Her voice sharpened. You withheld payment even after confirming the work met your standards. Marcus attempted a weak smile, but the effort fractured mid-expression. She was not cooperative. She questioned my decisions. Questioning is not insubordination, Judy replied. It is professionalism. A hushed murmur spread through the courtroom like a slow ripple of truth reaching every corner. Marcus tried to speak again, but the words tangled before escaping. There were delays. Judy tapped the document once. There were no delays recorded in this file. But there is something else that concerns me. The room stilled instantly. Marcus's eyes widened, too quickly, too fearfully, as though he already knew which ghost inside that envelope had finally clawed its way into daylight. Judy lifted a second sheet. Lines of text, time-stamped, annotated. According to this record, she said, Ms. Ruiz worked additional hours you requested, and you refused to compensate her. Marcus's jaw fell slack. I did not refuse. I misunderstood. No, Judy said, voice calm but edged with finality. You disregarded it. Elena exhaled softly, the breath of someone who had held a truth for too long. Judy placed both documents side by side and leaned forward. Mr. Hale, these papers show not a misunderstanding but a pattern. You approved the work. You benefited from the work. Then you attempted to evade responsibility. Marcus shook his head, palms open as if trying to release an invisible burden. You do not understand the pressure. Pressure, Judy interrupted, does not rewrite signatures. Silence spread like a curtain dropping. Judy's eyes narrowed. Ms. Ruiz, earlier you hesitated when I asked why you waited to file this claim. You said there was a reason. Elena's breath caught. Her gaze fell to the table. Judy's voice dropped to a low, steady note. Tell this court, Miss Ruiz. What exactly made you afraid to pursue justice sooner? Elena's hands tightened around the edge of the podium, not in fear, but in preparation. The kind of preparation a person makes before opening a door they prayed would stay closed. The courtroom sensed it. An almost sacred hush settled over the room. Judge Judy leaned forward. Ms. Ruiz, she said gently, what kept you from filing this sooner? Elena lifted her gaze. Her eyes shimmered, not with tears, but with a memory sharp enough to wound. Your Honor, she began, her voice soft but unwavering. I did not file because... He told me what would happen if I did. Every head in the room turned toward her. Even Marcus looked stunned, as if he had not expected that truth to step into the light. Judy's expression did not change, but the atmosphere shifted. Explain, she instructed. Carefully. Elena took a slow breath. I was supporting my mother through medical treatments. I had no room for risk, no room for losing work, and Mr. Hale knew that. She paused, steadying her voice. He told me that filing a claim would be a mistake I would regret. Marcus jolted. That is not true. I did not say... Judy raised her hand, a silent warning. He fell quiet instantly. Elena reached into her folder. The movement was slow, careful, like someone retrieving an object woven from glass and memory. I recorded something, she said, her voice breaking for the first time. Not because I wanted to, but because something in me said I might need it one day. A murmur shot through the courtroom. She placed a small device on the bench. The bailiff picked it up and handed it to Judy, who examined it with solemn patience. Ms. Ruiz, Judy said, what is on this? Elena pressed her lips together for strength. A voice memo. From the night he refused the final payment. Marcus paled. The reaction was instant, raw, frantic, impossible to hide. Elena continued. He approached me in the driveway. He said he could ruin my business with a single phone call. He said I should be grateful he had not already done it. A ripple of shock moved through the spectators. Marcus's breathing turned shallow. She is lying. No, Judy said, her voice firm and cold as marble. She is not. She inserted the device into the court's system. A soft beep echoed, then a click, then a second of static, and then Marcus's voice, unmistakable, emerging from the speakers like a ghost he had tried to bury. Cross me again, the recording growled, dripping with quiet menace, and you will regret taking this job. The courtroom went silent in a way that felt alive, the kind of silence that watches, the kind that judges. Elena closed her eyes, the memory washing over her. Marcus pressed both hands against the podium, knuckles bone white. Judy stared at him, a long, unbroken gaze heavy with moral verdict. This, she said, voice low, was not pressure. It was not frustration. It was a threat. Marcus trembled, not theatrical, not deliberate, just a man realizing his own words had become his undoing. Judy leaned toward him, voice quiet but devastating. Mr. Hale, tell this court why you believed intimidation was your right. The last echo of Marcus's recorded threat drifted through the courtroom like smoke, thin, poisonous, impossible to ignore. For a moment, no one moved. Even the lights felt still, as though the building itself was holding its breath. Judge Judy lowered the playback device, her expression carved from something colder than anger. Mr. Hale, she said softly, this is your voice, your words, your intent. She waited. The silence did not. Marcus opened his mouth, but nothing emerged. His lips parted, trembled, then pressed together again. The performance he had relied on, The sharp tone, the arrogant posture, the smirking swagger had drained entirely from his body. What remained was only fear, not fear of punishment, but fear of recognition, his own. Judy watched him with eyes that saw straight through the veneer he had spent years polishing. "You may speak," she said. Still, he said nothing. Elena stood behind him, not triumphant, not hardened, but deeply, achingly human. Her shoulders softened for the first time, as though she had finally put down a weight she had carried far too long. She did not look at Marcus. There was nothing left there worth seeing. The stillness became thick. The kind of silence that does not hide truth, it reveals it. Judy leaned back in her chair. The leather creaked softly, a subtle sound amplified by the gravity of the moment. "Your silence," she said, "is more honest than your words have been all day." Marcus flinched. It was small, but unmistakable. His hands gripped the podium. His knuckles lifted like stone under too much pressure. He glanced toward the audience, perhaps searching for sympathy, perhaps for escape, but found only the polite horror of people witnessing a man unravel in real time. Elena spoke then, her voice fragile but true. "I kept that recording for months. I listened to it every time I doubted myself." She swallowed hard. "I did not want revenge. I wanted to stop feeling afraid." Those words cut deeper than the audio ever could. They scraped at the part of Marcus that had chosen power over humanity. Judy's gaze drifted back to him. "You threatened her livelihood. You threatened her stability. You threatened her dignity. And she still gave you more respect than you ever gave her." Marcus finally managed a sound, a broken inhale, sharp and uneven. His shoulders shook once, the tremor traveling through him like a confession written in body language. Judy tapped the bench gently. "Mr. Hale, intimidation is a form of abuse. Silence in its aftermath is a form of admission." The courtroom did not applaud. It did not react loudly. It only watched a man crumble under the truth he created. Marcus's lower lip quivered. His eyes darted downward, then closed, not in reflection, but in collapse. Judy leaned forward, voice steady as stone. "Before I decide this judgment, there is one question you have not answered." He did not speak. He did not move. He only braced himself. Judy lowered her voice to a razor-thin whisper. "Mr. Hale, when did you first learn that power gave you permission to wound others?" The question hung in the air like a suspended blade, quiet, gleaming, inevitable. Marcus did not lift his head. He seemed almost afraid to raise his eyes, afraid of meeting the world that no longer mirrored back the man he believed himself to be. And for the first time since he entered the courtroom, arrogance had nothing left to cling to. Judge Judy watched him closely. She was not searching for excuses. She was searching for the moment truth breaks a person open. "Mr. Hale," she said again, her tone controlled but heavy with expectation. "When did you learn that power allowed you to wound others?" Marcus swallowed, but the answer did not come. His silence deepened, not defensive now, but reflective. His fingers loosened their grip on the podium, sliding slowly away as though he could no longer hold on to the version of himself he had tried to present. The room remained still. Even the air seemed to drift more cautiously. Finally, Marcus spoke, barely audible, words pushed out like confessions forced through a narrow space. I did not learn it. I became it." Elena looked up, her expression complicated. Part empathy, part sorrow, part distance from a man who had caused her months of fear. Her eyes softened, but she did not step closer. Marcus continued, voice thin as paper. "People respected me when I was loud, when I was demanding, when I took control. That was how I kept my clients, my image, my authority." His breath trembled. "I did not see who I was turning into. I only saw who I wanted people to believe I was." Judy did not interrupt. She allowed every faltering word to surface exactly as it wished. Marcus forced himself to meet Elena's gaze, though only for a moment. "I thought strength meant control. I thought confidence meant never letting anyone challenge me." Elena's expression shifted, just slightly. Not forgiveness, not acceptance, but recognition. Recognition of the fact that even the people who cause harm sometimes stand on foundations built from fear, not malice. Judy leaned forward, elbows resting lightly on the bench. Strength, she said, is measured by restraint. Confidence is measured by respect. What you practiced was neither. Marcus blinked hard, fighting the burn rising in his eyes. He did not wipe them. He did not hide. The performance was gone. Ms. Ruiz, Judy continued, turning gently toward Elena, you carried the consequences of his choices. You carried fear. You carried doubt. You carried the weight he handed you. She paused, letting the emotional clarity land. None of that belonged to you. Elena exhaled long and slow, releasing months of invisible pressure. Judy shifted her attention back to Marcus. You said you became this person. That suggests you were not always this way. Marcus nodded weakly. Then the person you became, Judy said, must now face the consequences. The sentence struck with quiet devastation. Marcus's posture folded inward. The weight of his own reflection, every lie, every moment of intimidation, every recorded threat, pressed down until he seemed physically smaller, dwarfed by the truth he had unleashed himself. For the first time, he whispered, I am sorry. The apology wavered, fragile, genuine, incomplete. Judy held up a hand. Do not say it to me. Say it to the person you harmed. Marcus turned. His voice cracked. Ms. Ruiz, I am sorry. Elena's eyes filled, not with triumph, but with mourning for the version of herself that had endured his cruelty. She nodded once, nothing more. Judy straightened, her tone turning firm again. Mr. Hale, remorse is noted, but it does not replace accountability. Now we address the consequences. The courtroom felt heavier now, as if the truth itself had weight and had chosen finally to settle. Marcus sat rigid, a man waiting for judgment he had once believed he would never face. His apology still hovered in the air, fragile and unfinished, dissipating faster than his former arrogance. Judge Judy straightened, her posture commanding a silence that came instantly, instinctively. The shift in her tone was subtle but unmistakable. The room understood that what came next would mark the turning point between exposure and consequence. Mr. Hale, she began, this court has heard enough to determine not only the facts, but the pattern behind them. Marcus swallowed, his throat tightening visibly. His eyes darted briefly toward the exit, then back to the bench, like a man searching for an escape route that no longer existed. Judy lifted the documents Elena had provided earlier. You approved the work. You accepted the work. You attempted to weaponize your position to avoid payment. And when Ms. Ruiz sought her rightful compensation, you threatened her livelihood. She paused, letting the words settle with the force of a moral hammer. This is not a dispute over craftsmanship. This is a dispute over character. The audience shifted, leaning in. Even the bailiff's expression darkened with the gravity of the moment. Therefore, Judy continued, you are ordered to pay Ms. Ruiz the full remaining balance of her invoice. She set the first paper down. Additionally, you will compensate her for the hours worked beyond the original contract, hours you requested yet refused to acknowledge. Marcus's jaw tightened, but he did not argue. Judy raised a second document. You will also reimburse Ms. Ruiz for the business she lost as a result of your intimidation. The court has calculated the amount based on her documentation, and it is substantial. A visible tremor moved through Marcus's shoulders. Judy then delivered the final blow, not loud, not cruel, but absolute. I will be issuing a formal note to court administration and production regarding your conduct today and throughout this project. This will remain part of your record for any future proceedings. It will not disappear. The color drained from Marcus's face. Not anger, not humiliation. Something deeper. Recognition. The recognition that this consequence would follow him. A stain on the image he had tried desperately to protect. Elena's eyes shimmered with relief, not victory. This moment was not triumph. It was release. She drew in a slow breath, shoulders loosening as though an invisible weight had finally slipped away. Marcus's voice cracked. Your Honor, please. Judy raised her hand, silencing him with a motion more powerful than any shout. Consequences, she said, are the special treatment you earned. The line struck the room with the clean precision of a gavel strike. Marcus lowered his eyes. His hands trembled. The man who had walked in demanding deference now sat confronting the reality of his own undoing. Judy rested her hand on the gavel. Mr. Hale, she said softly, there remains only one final matter to address. The gavel hovered. And it concerns the lesson you take from this. Before we reach the conclusion, think about this. Do individuals like Marcus truly change, or do consequences simply force them to pause? The gavel hovered in Judge Judy's hand, suspended like the last breath before a storm breaks. Marcus did not move. Elena did not blink. The entire courtroom leaned into the stillness, waiting for the moment when words would become judgment, and judgment would become truth. Judy lowered the gavel slowly, not yet striking it. Her eyes fixed on Marcus with a clarity that felt almost surgical. Mr. Hale, she said, her voice firm, measured, unwavering. You came into this courtroom performing. You believed authority meant volume. You believed respect was something you demanded, not something you earned. She paused. But today, the performance ends. Marcus's shoulders sagged. His hands, once restless, now lay open upon the podium as if surrender were the only posture left to him. The bravado that had carried him through countless confrontations had evaporated under the weight of his own words. Judy continued, her tone steady as a final verdict carving itself into stone. This court is not only concerned with what you failed to pay, it is concerned with how you used power, how you cultivated fear, how you built a version of yourself that required others to shrink for you to feel tall. The words struck him harder than any financial penalty could have. She turned toward Elena, her expression softening for the first time in several sessions. Ms. Ruiz, you have shown strength not through retaliation, but through resilience. Your courage in bringing this forward, despite fear, speaks louder than any of his threats ever did. Elena exhaled, a breath that carried months of held pain, released gently into the safety of the moment. Judy shifted her gaze back to Marcus. I hope you understand something vital. Accountability is not cruelty. It is mercy for the truth, and it is justice for those you harmed. Today, you face consequences not because you were powerful, but because you attempted to misuse that power. Marcus's eyes glistened, not with tears he allowed to fall, but with the realization that he stood exposed, stripped of the armor he had crafted and worn for far too long. Judy lifted the gavel once more. This matter is concluded. The gavel struck. The sound echoed across the courtroom, one sharp, resonant note that closed the distance between arrogance and consequence. Marcus did not stand immediately. He remained seated, breathing slowly, as though rebuilding himself from fragments. When he finally rose, he did not look at the audience or the cameras. He looked toward Elena. For a moment, something unguarded crossed his face. Not pride, not resistance, a recognition of the humanity he had ignored for so long. I am sorry, he whispered again. A whisper meant not for defense, not for image, but for truth. Elena nodded once, the gesture quiet and dignified. She gathered her folder, stood tall, and walked toward the exit with the steadiness of someone reclaiming her life.